Hey G, I just wanted to say first of all that I love your channel, love the content. You're my favorite true crime channel on YouTube. So anyway, I wanted to share with you a theory I have regarding the Delphi case. I think it's a new and interesting way to tie Richard Allen to Keegan Kline and to better understand some of the comments that law enforcement has made about some of the questions coming from the media and the public. So if you'll give me a little bit to kind of explain this to you, um, that'd be cool. So anyway, first of all, let's set the theory up with some known facts, or at least I believe they're known facts. Number one, Anthony Schatz was communicating with Libby on the day of the murders. Number two, Keegan Kline has claimed that no one else could have access to the Anthony Schatz account. And number three, police do not believe that Keegan Kline is the killer. Next, let's talk about plausible speculation. Now, unfortunately, there are so little verified facts about the arrest and this case in general that I feel like we need to include some speculation. However, I feel like the speculations I make here are reasonable and plausible. So, number one, Richard Allen went to the bridge with the intent to kill Libby and Abby. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, and I think it's pretty fair to assume that that's the case. Number two, Richard Allen has, at the very least, has had fantasies similar to the crime. He may have even committed similar crimes in the past. We don't know. However, we don't need to go that far in this speculation just to set up the fact that he has probably had fantasies similar to this crime in the past. Okay, so with that said, let's go back to before the murders. I want the theory to start there. So, sometime before the murders, Keegan Kline thinks up a way to trick young girls into sending him explicit media. He uses a fake social media account to lure girls into chatting on Snapchat, potentially because of the feature it has of deleting communications soon after they're received. He then grooms the girls and convinces them to send him that explicit media. I think he pretends to be a 19-year-old model here because he specifically chooses that age because he can convince the girls not to tell people about him. But 19 is still young enough so that the girls might not have felt creeped out by his advances. So I think that was his way of keeping his identity secret from the young girl's parents. Next, he probably used another website or program like Dropbox or Discord, or more likely something on the dark web because of its anonymity. He probably used that to share the images that he got of these young girls. This could be for money, or maybe there's this sick group who shares media with each other, and this is Keegan Kline's way of getting more images in trade for the pictures and videos that he has. I know this is pure speculation, but I promise it's going somewhere. Um, Additionally, I think it's safe to say that given the nature of the content that we're discussing, the members of such a group would want to remain anonymous at all costs, which is why they would probably be using the dark web. Therefore, Keegan Kline has no knowledge of the other members of this group that he's in. Next, as many people have concluded, someone doesn't just simply wake up at age 44 and decide to commit a crime like this. Richard Allen likely has had fantasies similar to this crime for some time, so at some point, it's reasonable to assume that he searches out a group of people with similar ideas. He likely stumbled across Kline's image posts on the Discord or the dark web or whatever they're using. This could be Keegan Kline's doing, or it may be a group that Keegan Kline is just a member of. Keegan Kline may not be the leader of this group. But anyway, Richard Allen may have also been a member of this group for some time. Okay, so now let's move on to the day of the murders, now that we have all that set up. Keegan Kline has been talking to Libby and has agreed to meet her at or near the bridge on February 13th. I believe that he may have said this to convince her to send him more photos because I highly doubt he would actually meet up with her. He's clearly not the model in the photos he's sending her, so I assume he would have made up an excuse as to why he couldn't show up later in the day. But I think that he used the idea of meeting up with her in order to get something from her in return. Anyway, uh, Keegan Klein gets Libby to send him content, potentially, from the Monon High Bridge. Keegan Klein knows that he's never going to go meet up with the girls, so instead, he immediately uploads those images to this group that he's a part of. Richard Allen happens to see the image at that time and realizes that it's the Monon High Bridge, and he can see a timestamp on the photo, maybe, or a message sent by the girls. It's timestamped on Snapchat, so maybe he saw that. Um, and at that moment, he realized that the girls were at the High Bridge. And I can even picture the scenario where there's a conversation within the group about how Keegan said he was going to go meet up with the girls, but he obviously can't go meet up with the girls. So maybe even that conversation happened, and Richard Allen saw this conversation happen, and he puts two and two together, and he realizes that he has the perfect opportunity to commit a crime that he's always wanted to do. And best of all, there's an evidence trail leading directly to somebody else. The Snapchat account, Anthony Schatz. Although, in this theory, Richard Allen likely doesn't know the identity of Anthony Schatz yet. Keep in mind, everybody's going to be anonymous in this group. So, Richard Allen only knows that somebody else in Delphi is posting these pictures of young girls. Okay, so Richard Allen realizes that the girls are at the bridge right then, and it's only minutes down the road. It's a walk down the road from his house. Additionally, Richard Allen likely knew that the bridge was a dead end and that the girls would be trapped if they had gone to the end of that bridge, which maybe he saw the photo of them on Snapchat and knew they were at the end of the bridge. That's a long bridge to walk down. So if he saw that the girls were at the end of the bridge, having a good time, taking pictures, doing what young children do, don't you think he might have had time to quickly make his way to the bridge and get on the bridge before they had time to leave the bridge? He's a 5-minute drive down the road. Anyway, he likely knew that the bridge was a dead end and that the girls were trapped. After all, Richard Allen loved hiking, and he had been a resident of Delphi for quite some time, so he was likely, excuse me, he was likely familiar with the bridge. He could go to the bridge, commit the crimes, and confidently leave Libby's phone there to try to make sure that law enforcement connects the Snapchat account Anthony Schatz to the murders. Think about it for a second. Why wouldn't Richard Allen take the girls' cell phones and destroy them if he knew that Keegan Klein would be linked to this? If they're connected somehow, wouldn't that have been enough for him to want to take the phones and destroy them? If he destroyed their phones, would that be enough to erase the Snapchat lead, or at least make it harder to prove that him or Keegan Klein were linked to that Snapchat account? No, he wanted law enforcement to find that phone. Again, Keegan Klein doesn't know any of the users. They're all anonymous. And they're likely using the dark web to remain anonymous. So the absolute most that Keegan Klein could give to law enforcement is the group chat, which very likely shut down shortly after the murders due to this being such a high-profile case. There was likely no more evidence within that group chat, if it even still existed. But I would bet that Keegan Klein had screenshots of some kind of the group chat. I would imagine he seems like the kind of person who would save all of those items that he gets from the group chat. So likely there is evidence on Keegan Klein's devices of this group. So anyway, the group might have been a dead end by this point, but not really, right? Because even if they couldn't get any more information out of this group, they know that the killer was in the group, right? It's too much of a coincidence for Anthony Shots to be communicating with them, post their location in this group, and then minutes later, the crime occurs. They're attacked. So I think that they can assume the killer is a local in this case. So they, at this point, try to get Keegan Kline to help them possibly identify the killer in the group. Maybe by things they've said, interactions he's had with people in the group, and that kind of explains the ongoing negotiations that Keegan Kline is having with officers, why his trial keeps getting pushed back, and why charges keep getting dropped, because he's working with police to find more of these people or to find the killer. So this theory kind of connects Keegan Kline to the crime, and it also is a crime of opportunity, because I believe that Keegan Kline has told police everything that he knows and is likely trying to help the police, either because he never intended anyone to be killed and he feels bad, or maybe it's to lower his punishments for his own crimes. I think that Richard Allen felt confident enough to stay in Delphi after Keegan Kline's face appeared in the news because he wanted law enforcement to find Anthony Shots. In fact, Richard Allen was probably over the moon with joy. They would pin it on Keegan Kline. Richard Allen probably felt so confident that he even kept photos or souvenirs from the crime buried in his garden or hidden in his house. So that's my theory. Richard Allen had live access to the images that Keegan Kline posted from the Anthony Shots Snapchat. He read the conversation that Keegan Kline was supposed to meet the girls. He quickly devised a plan to commit the crime. He purposely left Libby's phone, not knowing that she got the video of him on the bridge, to lead law enforcement down the wrong path. He thought he got away with it, until he didn't. Okay, so how does this fit in with what we know? Well, law enforcement said that they thought it was a local. Wouldn't that make more sense if they knew Keegan Kline posted that image and someone else committed the crime? That person would have to be a local to be able to recognize the bridge in the photo, or recognize where the girls were. In fact, I also want to point out that at some point I saw, I'm not sure if this is fact, and I'm sure you might be able to know better if this is fact or not, but I heard somewhere that someone stated that after Anthony Shots spoke to a young girl, a man in a ski mask was seen outside the girl's house looking in their windows, I believe. I'm not sure if this is true, but maybe Richard Allen had realized that someone was posting things on girls in the Delphi area, and he used that knowledge to watch those girls that he was seeing Anthony Shots post. Maybe he became obsessed with some of these girls. And anyway, let me continue on here. It explains, let's see, where was I? Yeah, law enforcement said that it wasn't information from Keegan Kline or from the Wabash River search that led them to Richard Allen. Well, that kind of makes sense, because Keegan Kline wouldn't know that it was Richard Allen. It was more likely due to some kind of electronic evidence that led to Richard Allen, or maybe the investigators knew it was a local after the Keegan Kline revelations, and they went back through all the files and somehow landed on Richard Allen. I think we'll need to see the unsealed probable cause affidavit to know for sure. Moving on, it explains why the girls' phones were left at the crime scene. At least I assume they were left at the crime scene. We've never known that they were taken. I just assumed that's how they got the Snapchat video and the other information off the girls' phones, the idea being that the phones were left at the crime scene. It explains how it could both be tied to Keegan Kline and also be a lone wolf crime at the same time. It explains why the probable cause affidavit is sealed. law enforcement likely will make more arrests related to images found within the group of individuals. Maybe they found evidence related to other missing persons reports or other unsolved murders within that group that keeping the files sealed will protect other investigations, some of these other things they found. It explains why Keegan Kline failed his polygraph test, because he technically knows something about the murders, although he doesn't know the identity of the killer. Okay, I'm sure there's other reasons this fits, and maybe you could help me figure out a few more reasons why it fits, or change the theory to make it fit better. But finally, I would like to point out some of the pretty glaring problems in my theory. It would be irresponsible to not point out some of the issues in the theory, because again, this is all speculation, and I don't know if this is true any more than you do. So anyway, one of the first problems is Keegan Kline's Google search history. He Googled the gas station near the bridge on the day of the murder, I believe. He also Googled how long does DNA stay on a body. These are both pretty suspicious, extremely suspicious. But let me at least try to explain how this might fit into my theory. And I'm by no means defending Keegan Kline or Richard Allen. I'm just trying to make these facts fit the theory, okay? Get that out of the way. Maybe the gas station was where Keegan Kline, or Anthony Schatz, I should say, was supposed to meet the girls. It's near the bridge, and it's reasonable to assume that if the girls were meant to meet Anthony Schatz at the gas station, say, in a couple of hours, that the girls would maybe try to waste some time and walk across the bridge before they went to go meet Anthony Schatz. They'll go take some pictures for their Instagram or for their Snapchat. Maybe they sent Anthony Schatz the photo from the bridge saying something like, "We're waiting for you," or "Can't wait to see you," or something like that, and that might be the image that he posted to his group. So anyway, maybe that's where Keegan Kline agreed to meet with Libby. And again, I think that in order for Keegan Kline to say that he would be willing to go meet Libby, even though he knows damn well that he's not going to go meet her, he has to be getting something in return for that. There has to be a reason that he's telling her he's going to go meet her. So I think that it's so that he can get more images or videos or whatever he's having her send him. So I think he the whole time planned on canceling the plans with Libby, not going to meet her. Of course he can't go meet her. And that kind of explains the gas station search. He was looking for a place that he could meet the girls in downtown, somewhere near the High Bridge. The next thing he searched, the DNA search, it's considerably more damning. I'll admit that. But maybe we just don't know the context of his mindset when he made the search. He might have searched the DNA thing knowing that somebody in his group likely is the killer, right? Because he posted the pictures of the girls at the High Bridge hours, minutes, some short amount of time before they were killed. And these are the girls he's been talking to. These are the girls he's been posting pictures of to other people who are, at the very least, not trustworthy individuals. And so now he's starting to panic because he knows the Snapchat account can be linked to him. And if they link the Snapchat account to these murdered children, he's screwed. So maybe he Googled how long DNA stays on a body because he knew he was going to need to prove that he's not the killer. He might think that if the killer left DNA on the body, it might be his only ticket out of this. And maybe he was worried that if he didn't come clean or something before that DNA was no longer viable, this is going to get pinned on him. One of the next problems is what led to the arrest of Richard Allen. And I think I speculated about this a little bit earlier, but if law enforcement knew about Keegan Kline's group, and knew that Keegan Kline was not the killer, then they'd likely deduce that it must be a local. This may have led them to look back at their files and somehow focus in on Richard Allen. I've heard some say that Richard Allen told an official that he was there on the bridge that day of the murder, but that he didn't see the girls. Maybe that was enough to get law enforcement to begin to look into Richard Allen. Anyway, I'm sure you can think of many other holes in the theory, but I think it's a reasonable jumping off point. It almost lines up with all the facts and evidence, and it does start to explain some of the secrecy that law enforcement has been uh, sticking to as they move forward in the case. And it also explains how Keegan Kline fits into all of this. Anyway, G, I love your channel, and it's largely due to your research that I've been able to piece this theory together. So I thought it was only fair to bounce this idea off of you. If you'd like to talk about it at all, I'd love to chat. So thanks.